And so for me, the breath is that little switch. When you think you can't make it, you got it. It's right there. Just turn to it, flip it on, and you will surprise yourself at what you can do. I'm being challenged to master these yogic skills like bilocation because we have so much happening on so many levels. I mean, it's a wonderful problem to have, you know, because breathing has come front and center stage all over the world. I mean, literally millions of people are dying, struggling to breathe. And if ever there was a time for self-awakening and self-liberation and self-empowerment, this is the time. And breathing is the quintessential way to self-empower, to self-awaken, to self-liberate, and to connect. I mean, in these days of social distancing, we have got to find ways to connect more deeply. And we got to get creative about this human connection, because that human connection is one of the ultimate healers. There's always somebody who is just overflowing with energy. And in a system, people who are low on energy, that energy just moves where it needs to go. So we need to be uplifting ourselves. And in the process, we automatically uplift others. So I'm all in, brother. So thanks for arranging this little conversation.
Yeah. Hope we can spread the word even further. I don't think it really needs it. I think it naturally will just soak into people because it is so simple and so pure. And you speak of it. I can't even. I'm trying to imagine if this book was hard to write for you, the Just Breathe book, because it just feels so. It's so potent and it's so genuine. The passion, the feeling into it, but it's it's an easy read, but I'm gaining so much from it. I can imagine it was kind of the opposite of hard to write. It was just, I don't know, how was it? You tell me, but it was it just feels such a naturally written manuscript, like literally a manual for life. It's just, I'm not rushing to finish it. I thought, I'll finish it for the conversation, but I'm like, no. This is perfect. I'm just taking my time with it.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I have an opposite story of the classic author story where you write your epic book and you send it to 100 publishers and you get 100 Dear John letters back, thank you, but no thank you. I mean, they called me, so how does that? And then they gave me this amazing advance, an unknown, untested author from, Simon & Schuster, one of the biggest publishers in the world. I mean, it's a dream, a lot of people dream about this stuff. And I think that's one of the miracles of the breath that our dreams just light up. And so I've written a report, an article about breathing every single month since June of 1976. And I haven't missed a month in that time. So I'm always writing. And it's funny, I signed this contract 2015 with Simon & Schuster. And I didn't write a word for 3 months. And so it was like, oh my God. And then when I finally submitted it, it was this, 120,000 words and 35 chapters. And thank God for really good editors. Wow, I have a profound respect for real editors. I had a copy editor, we had a line editor, we had a story editor, there was a supervising editor. And I'll tell you, we is smarter than me. And so they just turned my work, pared it down to 75,000 words and 6 chapters. And so it was meant to be something that, that's accessible, that's usable. And so I'm so happy that you're getting a lot out of it, and appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah, I fucking love it. It's very, very potent and just fragrant with life. I mean, obviously you talk a lot. I mean, you've got dedicated a whole chapter of 4-5 to spiritual breathing and like the purification that comes with breath. And that is absolutely vital, because more than ever, I feel we are in a very kind of a natural environment we see ourselves in, and we've got to get back to the roots, get back to the core, and
especially in my country, there's this uncivil war happening, and it's really necessary that we find that part of us that we all have in common. And all of our differences, they're really on the surface. As soon as you start to go a little deeper, I've been to 66 countries, and, underneath it all, everyone's the same. All the differences are on the surface. And so if I can't connect to that deep place in myself, how can I recognize it in you? And how can we transcend these superficial differences and this sort of black and white and back and forth and us and them, and just somehow, Rumi talked about it. Let's meet in a place beyond me and you, beyond right and wrong, beyond us and them and good and bad. Let's find that place and meet in that place. And so, we're being called. We're being called to rise up and shed some of our old baggage and get over some ancient habits and patterns and conflicts, and just finally, as a human race, let's move on from from this jungle tribal kind of programming, and let's realize that we're all in this together. Mm-hmm. And it's impossible. If I'm connected to you, how can I do violence on you without hurting myself? The only way that's possible is if I deny or ignore my connection to you. And so breathing awakens that connection, where we realize, what, we're all in this together. A lot of beautiful flowers in the same garden, a lot of single rays of light coming from the same source. Let's wake up to that, and let's start living from that, and not just have it be an intellectual philosophy. Oh, we're all connected. What a beautiful spiritual idea. We're all one. We're all connected. Yeah, great. I'm glad you got it. But can you feel it in your cells? And can you live from that place? And can you have integrity with that realization? And so that's the challenge. And breathing gives us a way to navigate that. We all have a lot of emotional detoxing to do. We have a lot of psychological detoxing to do. We have a lot of social detoxing to do. And breathing is the quintessential detoxing element. 70% of our metabolic waste is eliminated through breathing. Only 3% through defecation, only 7% through urination, and about 20% through perspiration. So if you think having a good bowel movement and working up a good sweat is healthy for you, then you have got to practice breathing every day.
Yeah. I would like to hear that on the news sometime. Just a headline that just scrolls underneath the people speaking. I want to touch on one of the most significant, again, simple moments in the book, that you say, knowing when to take charge and knowing when to get out of your own way. And we've all heard that before, get out of your own way. What does it really mean? It's kind of very interpretive, isn't it? But what I got from that was so profound. It was just like a new way of, maybe the breathwork allowed me to see it in a new light, but it touched me because it was more than just get out of my own physical way. It was my mind. Doing the breathwork allows me to just separate myself from my head, my mind, get out of that way. And
that might be the longest journey we need to make, right? The journey from our head to our heart. What is it? 12 inches, where you're right on with that.
Yeah. And it's just knowing when to take charge of, okay, I'm going to put a lot of intention into this, but I'm going to know when I need to get. It's kind of a fine balance, isn't it? It's hard for some people because you over intellectualize it, and you don't necessarily know. Like wanting to take charge is when to be in your heart space, and when not to.
Well, yeah, I mean, breathing actually makes it simple to apply this, so you don't have to figure it out. So in our relationship to the breath, we have two possible positions. I can do the breathing, or I can allow the breath to breathe me.
Mhm.
You know, I can control the breath, or I can allow the breath to come and go the way it wants. And so in the actual practice of breath work, we get to develop this skill of taking charge. I mean, sometimes we need to paddle our canoe if we're going to get anywhere. And with the breath, we learn how to let go and surrender to something else in our heart to come through. We can put the oars in the boat, and we know when to let the river take us. And so I think many people, they're paddling when they don't need to, and they got their oars in their boat and they're sitting on their butts when they should be paddling like crazy. And so they haven't developed this intuitive ability to really know, am I coming from my head or am I coming from my heart? Is this thought that I got, is it coming from my programming and my conditioned mind, or is it a genuinely creative thought? And the energy that I'm living on, is it adrenalized energy, which is not sustainable, and ultimately we're going to crash and burn, or is it genuine energy that I'm living on and fueling from? And breathing helps us sort that out. If I'm doing the breathing and I'm meeting any resistance, I'm meeting some resistance in myself. And when I'm afraid to let go and surrender, I'm afraid to let go of something in me and to surrender to something in me. And so breathing brings us right face to face with whatever it is we need to let go of, whatever it is we need to open and expand into, whatever it is we need to release, to wake up to. And so it takes all the theory and the philosophical confusion out of it. I take a breath right now, and I'm inviting something. And when I exhale, I'm relaxing into something. And if we keep doing that, what's going to happen is you're going to begin to open to more and more of life, more and more of who you are. And you're going to learn to let go and surrender more and more into what is and into what wants to be. And so the thing about breathing is it's an action. It's a primal action. And it's like anything else. It's like exactly this. If you haven't learned how to control your breath, you don't know how to control yourself. If you haven't learned how to let go of your exhale, you haven't learned how to let go of pain or let go of fear or let go of anxiety. If you haven't learned how to navigate the feelings and sensations that come up when you breathe, you don't know how to navigate life. And so everything keeps coming back down to the breath. And any progress you make or any awakening you have in relationship to the breath, it carries over into your whole life and into everything. Breathing is the primal way of communicating. Breathing is the primal movement of life in us. Breathing is a primal action we take. And so it's not a cliche. It's not just a pretty kind of philosophy. Breathing is life. Breath is life. And our relationship to our breath is an expression, a creative expression, and a reflection of our relationship to our body, to life, to each other, to ourselves, and to the world. And the sooner people wake up to the breath, the sooner they wake up to who they are, why they're here, and what life is all about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I also want to add, it just does create space, whether that physically, mentally, it just creates that space you need. Maybe it's a few seconds, maybe it's a lot longer, but it creates that space that we need to tune into our intuition, our heart space, our spirit. And I know you use those interchangeably as well, the heart and spirit. And I mean, I've been kind of on the self-development, awareness, consciousness kind of path for a while, and it did resonate with me more than it has done before, that interchangeable thing between spirit and heart. And I never really saw them as kind of the same, which it really just is. It's that space between your next action. It's that space between that next thought or that thinking moment. And it was just so beautifully worded as well. And I think for the limited things that language kind of like has, the limitations that language has, I think you did a very good job at describing and interpreting things.
And you know, the thing about breathing is that you have to experience it for yourself. And if you practice certain breathing exercise and breathing techniques and you create this amazing experience, you have no one to blame but yourself. And no one can breathe for you. And so breathing forces us to wake up. It shows us how to relax, and it gives us the energy we need to take charge in those moments when, hey, listen, I am a point of power. If something's going to happen, it's because I'm part of that happening. And it's like Gandhi, we want to be the change that we want to see in the world, right? And breathing helps us to be that change. Heart-centered, tolerant, loving, present, clear, and ready to dive in and jump in when a fellow soul meets us. That sharing, just sharing of the breath, two people who breathe together, bond and connect in a way that no other way makes possible.
Yeah, you talk about the collective breathing, and I started to think about that, the singing, the prayer, like any times we're in kind of harmony together in communion with and breathing together. And then I thought about sex, and I was like, sex, like you have to be in sync with your partner's breathing. And I was just like, yeah, I remember the bad times I had some not so good sex. And I was thinking breathing was definitely not right. Tuning into that.
Oh yeah. I mean, I don't know. If you could peek in on people making love, it looks like people are trying to climb out of their body at the very moment of the peak of an orgasm. It's like it's too much. And maybe that's why orgasms are only a few seconds long, because our system cannot tolerate more than a few seconds of ecstatic experience. And so that's a good use of the breath to kind of, expand our ability to tolerate pleasure.
Yeah. Amazing. And yeah, the collective breathing, it is so significant.
That's something you mentioned. It really, I mean, I was raised in the Catholic Church, and we would all say the rosary together out loud, Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee, blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now at the hour of death. Amen. And so everybody repeating that prayer together, everyone's breathing becomes synchronized. It's the same thing with chanting, mantras. People repeating and chanting the same song, the same mantra at the same time, without realizing it, they are synchronizing their breathing. And that's what makes the experience so juicy and so beautiful. And you can't wait to go back next week because you feel this amazing connection. So that's one of the hidden benefits of prayer, verbal, communal prayer. And it doesn't matter whether you're praying to a tree or praying to the Buddha, the fact that everybody is repeating the same prayer out loud at the same time, the real secret ingredient, or one of them, is that everyone's breathing is synchronized and they're connecting at this heart level, at this energetic level. And so we need to do more of it. Yeah. Even in boot camp, when I was in boot camp in military, and the typical drill sergeant thing, yes, sir. And everybody yells, yes, sir. I can't hear you. Yes, sir. I still can't hear you. Yes, sir. And every guy in that room took the breath at exactly the same time. They exhaled at exactly the same time. And you feel bigger. You feel more powerful. You feel more alive because you have combined your energies in that moment through the breath. And so to do it consciously, deliberately, that's the next stage of the flow state, right? Everybody understands being in the zone and being in the flow state. What about group flow? What about groups performing in the zone together? Breathing is the key to making that happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that specific part in the book, it just felt quite mystical as well. It was like I don't know, like try it for yourself. This is unexplainable. Do we have to know? Just do it. It just feels good.
Yep. Yeah. So people, and, experience, that's all people need. You breathe, give yourself an experience. You don't have to believe me. You don't have to believe anything. You have an actual experience. And one of my good friends, Mark Devine, a fellow breathing brother, He said, you know, concepts get you nowhere. Training get you everywhere. And so if you train every day, just taking sighs of relief, you are training in a skill of relaxing. If you breathe every day, open and expand, relax and let go, you'll be surprised at what you can open and expand into in yourself and around you. And you'll be surprised at what you can let go of. And so the proof is in the pudding. A daily practice, and it won't take but a few days before you see your life, your energy levels, everything is changing. And it's not hyperbole. It's fact. You have a daily breathing practice, even if it's only 5 minutes 3 times a day or 20 minutes twice a day, your life is going to change, guaranteed. And if it doesn't change, I don't believe you. You must not be doing it.
Great teacher. I don't believe you. Prove it to me that it didn't affect you, because your state has changed and it is undeniable. I can see it. I can feel it in you. Get out of your head.
Yeah.
And I want to touch on yawning as well, because I love the social norms versus the biological norms and that kind of debate. And yawning for me, I mean, I'm not lying when I say this. I am telling the truth. As soon as the chapter came about and I started reading, I started to yawn. It was like I had permission to do it, and I couldn't stop. And it's like you see someone, they yawn, you yawn. It is the permission factor. It's like, yeah, oh, they're yawning. Oh, I feel like I use a yawn right now, and just tuning into that and reshaping that and just redefining what it means to yawn. It's just something that we could all benefit from. Yet we don't. We kind of dismiss it and then simply just think of it as like, oh, that's negative.
You know, as I say in my book, yawning is yoga. You know, when you yawn, you have an urge to stretch. The breath is already moving. And it just feels so good. You know, Rumi talked, was it Rumi? I forget. Someone talked about the soft animal of your body. And we have to let the soft animal of our body love what it loves, and it loves to yawn. And neuroscientists cannot find any single activity that lights up more parts of the brain than a simple yawn. So, wow, we need to be doing it and squeezing all the juice out of it and exaggerating it and giving yourself Shakespearean sighs of relief and Shakespearean yawns, and go for it, because there's a lot of social conditioning. You know, you yawning. Oh, am I boring you? Are you tired? You know, no, it's just, I'm alive and it wants to happen. And let me allow this happening to happen, you know? And so it's no accident. It's no coincidence that our nervous system is wired to yawn regularly. That is not an accident. We need to be jumping on board with our nature. And every time a yawn comes by itself, I say double down on nature and then activate another yawn right away. And let's start to come into harmony with our nature instead of fighting it and resisting it and thinking we need to suppress it or control it. Let's use the breath to open and expand. And as soon as I do, my heart opens and expands because my lungs are wrapped around my heart. And so you're in the game like instantly, and your chemistry changes, your psychological state changes, your emotional state changes instantly with the breath. So it's this very powerful tool for changing our state. And in this world right now, the state that we're in, man, we need a change.
Yeah. Something that came up the weekend, and I'll explain what happened. But something that came up was if you ignore the nature within you, you damage the nature around you.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Say that again. If you ignore the nature within you.
If you ignore the nature within you, you damage the nature around you.
Nature around you. How true it is. Hey, listen, polluted rivers, polluted bloodstreams, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Conflicting countries, internal conflict. So we are, the world is our creation, and we're not going to have world peace until we promote or we're not going to be able to promote world peace until we awaken our own inner peace. And in awakening our own inner peace, it begins to spread. Just like a yawn is contagious. It's not an accident that yawning is contagious. Nature designed it that way. And everything is contagious. Joy is contagious. Pain is contagious. Anger is contagious. And so we need to start having this love bug, and everybody's got to catch it, and everybody's got to, we have to catch it, and let's not fight this contagion for joy and for peace and for life, and let it spread, and let it spread with the breath. A heartfelt intention powered by the breath. I conjure up a heartfelt intention for the world, for peace, for joy, for love, for freedom, for health. And I'm sincere in that. And then I breathe. We're changing the world when we do that. It really works. Positive thinking and positive intention is very powerful. And when you put the power of the breath behind it, we create what it is that we intend. So breathing, the creative process is bringing together consciousness and energy. What do I hold in my consciousness, and what life force do I put into that? And poof, something is created. So let's create more joy. Let's create more peace. Let's create more compassion, more cooperation, more tolerance, more freedom, more safety. And one at a time, each of us doing our part, it happens.
Yeah. So one of the coinciding with this, the consciousness and the awareness, I loved when you kind of you investigated essentially like Patanjali's versions and perspectives on awareness versus consciousness, and differentiating the two, and it really coincided with what happened this weekend. So do you know Muji? You know Muji, right?
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Wow.
So relevant and so applicable to now. I feel I was on his satsang the whole weekend. Yeah, he had an online virtual retreat. So just for those listening, it was satsang means kind of a gathering of people to seek the truth. Very simple. And it was kind of like, seminars to the Western, I guess. But he comes and he sits, and he's kind of this Rasta. My girlfriend compares him to this kind of Rasta spiritual leader meets Father Christmas, because people come with him with their letters, and he reads them and he dissects them and like explains like the meaning within, and he really helps people. He's got a huge following. So his satsangs were Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and we spent quite a large majority of it in silence, also just in our flat, where we live. And it was so subtle, so simple. He can talk forever, and he's got such an extensive vocabulary, but he can just talk about the same thing over and over again, and you get it every time. Sorry, what was that?
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah,
Really.
He's just so simple. And what was I saying about the awareness and consciousness? That awareness is that he said something in a meditation, which was rest in the awareness as awareness itself. Rest in the awareness as awareness itself.
Yep. Yeah.
And it's,
that's one of my teachers, Onions to Pearls, Nadine. He was an ecstasy dealer back a long time ago, and ended up in federal prison and woke up in federal prison. And his major insight was, as he finally put words to it, was being with what is as it is. Learn to be with what is as it is. And what is pure awareness. And if we can be with pure awareness as it is, as pure awareness, we've come home. We've come home to who we are. And then we're going to miss it. We're going to lose it. We're going to get lost. And then we find our way back. And then we get pulled out. And then we get distracted and we find our way back. And pretty soon we can be living from that place. And living from that place of pure awareness dissolves and prevents all of the various problems and issues.
And he talks about he talked about like what it isn't, essentially. You can't really describe what it is, but this is what it's not. It's not your name. It's not your place. It's not where you've been. It's not where you're going. It is something untouchable, unshapable, complete expansion. It's a moment. It's not really a feeling. It's more of just try and get away from any chatter, and then you'll see the isness. He calls it the isness, which relates to what you're saying.
And it begins with a quiet mind, because as long as that monkey is chattering, it's really hard to hear that still, quiet voice. It's really important to have a relaxed body, because when you are distracted by pain and tension, you can't connect to that subtle beauty. And as it turns out, breathing helps us with both of those things. Breathing helps us to quiet our mind. Breathing helps us to relax our body. And in that state, something can emerge, an insight, a realization, a connection. And you can't make it happen. It's more like grace. You can't work at it. You can't deserve it. You can't earn it. You can't steal it. It happens in the process of doing something else. And that something else you could call it meditation. You could call it breathing. We're making ourselves available for it. As soon as you try to go after it, forget about it, But, we want to do something. We want to get there. We need to take some kind of action for our own liberation, for our own awakening. So it's a beautiful dance between how we started out this talk in the beginning, doing the work and sitting back and allowing the work to happen, doing the breathing and allowing the breath to breathe us. And in that game, we crack the code of self-realization and liberation and enlightenment and all of the ways of pointing to it, the kingdom of heaven, Kensho, Moksha, Samadhi, Satori. Let's go down the list of all of the words and ways of describing this ineffable, this unspeakable, unexplainable kind of experience that can only be experienced. As soon as you try to talk about it, ain't it anymore. So, yeah. But, we each have a way of talking about it. And sometimes somebody says something, and they might have heard the same thing 100 times, but a certain person says it and they got it. Or they've heard the message 100 times and a certain person says it in a certain way where they finally get it. And this is happening more and more. Average, ordinary people are becoming enlightened, and they are lending their voice to this, perennial philosophy. We're each finding our own way to get there, our own way to talk about it, our own way to share it, and our own way to spread it. And this podcast is one of those infinite number of ways. Maybe one person is going to wake up after this conversation.
Yeah.
Our work is done. Praise the Lord. My purpose is fulfilled.
I feel it happened to me in a sense when I first started listening to podcasts. This is one of the reasons why I started one, because they changed my life, the way of thinking, thought, something without an agenda, something truthful, something spoken from the heart, something with just no affiliation. And it was just conversation, meaningful conversation. And I could have it anywhere I go. I was addicted to podcasts. Before I'd go to a birthday or a celebration, I'd be like, I've got to get some wisdom in before I go into this like social gathering, because I've got to just preach it, spread it. It's like a spiritual ego or something. Oh God.
Yeah. Hey, well, that's perfect, because I just got off a beautiful call with about 30 of our presenters at the Breathing Festival, which is happening February 11th to the 28th. Yeah. I know you know about it. And our latest speaker to sign on is Tony Robbins. The one and only Tony Robbins is presenting at the Breathing Festival. And, I just got off kind of a Zoom call of all of the presenters. We're just connecting and getting to know each other. We have more than 50 people presenting, the leading voices in the breathing world. And I'm just so uplifted by that, and just by the connection and the collaboration. And so, yeah, it's time. And I invite everybody who's listening, if you haven't got a ticket for the Breathing Festival, it's $11 and you get to hear from 50 of the leading breath workers in the world. I mean, duh. Come on in.
Yeah, definitely. And I'll put a link to that and where to hit it up, because I'm sure I will be there for sure. Amazing. I do want to ask you while I've got you, just because there will be some people listening. Most of them, I reckon, will have already started taping their mouth up at night, experimented with nose breathing when they're running. Like I get a sense that my listeners will have kind of dabbled into this before. But for those that haven't, I think it's really significant to just know, and just perhaps we could draw some attention to, I know you do in your book, about functional breathing, because there are a lot of statistics out there that a large majority of us are not breathing properly due to diet, due to fitness, due to lifestyle. So perhaps just a little exercise where we can tune in and see if our breath is functional, and then what we can do about it if we see that it's not.
Yeah. Well, a healthy person should be able to breathe quickly, like a happy dog. I mean, you should be able to breathe 60, 120, 180 breaths a minute. And if you can't, if it gets all jammed up and sticky, then it means you need to move through your body, find places to soften and loosen, find where you're fighting yourself, and get to the point where you can breathe very, very quickly, very smoothly, and very easily. You can't do that unless you work through some conflicting muscular and structural kind of stuff. A healthy person needs to be able to breathe slowly. 6 breaths a minute, 4 breaths a minute, 2 breaths a minute, 1 breath a minute, 1 breath every 2 minutes, right? So those parameters, it's kind of like, you learn how to breathe fast, you learn how to breathe slow, and you've expanded your breathing capacity. You got to learn how to breathe high in your chest. You got to learn how to breathe low in your belly. You got to learn how to breathe into the center of your chest. You got to learn how to breathe in your back. And so you want to practice this expansion, top to bottom, side to side, front to back. Where are your limitations? Where is it easy? If it's really easy for you, then practice it and enjoy it. And if it's challenging, here's something you want to train. So I suggest people do a simple triangle breath. Inhale, exhale, pause. Inhale, exhale, pause. That happens to be the way nature has hardwired us to breathe when we are sitting at rest. That is the normal physiological, biological, chemically driven breathing pattern. Inhale, exhale, pause. So I just suggest that people do that on purpose. Consciously breathe in, maybe for the count of 3 or 4. Exhale for a count of 3 or 4. And then pause for a count of 3 or 4. And is it easy? Is it enjoyable? Is it challenging? And then ramp it up. Maybe you make a bigger triangle. Breathe 5, 5, 5, or 6, 6, 6, or 10, 10, 10, and see where you begin to bump into resistance or limitations. And then meditate at that point. My friend, I mentioned him earlier, Mark Devine, said, you don't need to push yourself through your limits, but you need to lean into them. And I say, just you get to the edge of your limitations, your comfort, and just hang out there, hover there, get comfortable there until your comfort zone grows. And then it grows more and it grows more. So simple triangle breath. And then play with the legs of the triangle. So you make the inhale leg as long as you can. How long is that? Can you do a 10-second inhale? Can you do a 30-second inhale? In my prime, if I were to train, I can do a 4-minute inhale, right? So how long can you do the inhale? The same thing with the exhale. How long can you stretch your exhale out? 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, and play with that. And then the pause. How long can you sit in a comfortable, relaxed pause after the exhale? And can you open and relax into that pause? And so just start with a triangle breath and see, maybe your most comfortable triangle has 3 different size legs. It's a isosceles triangle, or I don't know the terms, but maybe it's 4 on the inhale, 10 on the exhale, and 2 on the pause. Or maybe it's 10 on the inhale, 4 on the exhale, and 10 on the pause. What is that for you? And start to play with it and experiment. What is your most comfortable triangle? And then start training and practicing, because we want to train in the direction of comfort. That's nature giving us a cue. If you enjoy a particular breathing pattern, that's not an accident. That's your nature saying, hey, yoo-hoo. So enjoy that. But we want to train in the direction of comfort, but we also need to train in the direction of challenge. And so that's my advice for training. Train in the direction of pleasure and train in the direction of challenge. Start with a triangle, and which of those legs is most challenging for you? Which of those feels juicy? Which of those do you enjoy? And double down on them and bring the other 2 legs up to speed with your favorite one, right? And now you're creating balance in your system, you're finding your center, and you're harmonizing with your nature, because you are breathing in a way that is already aligned with how nature programmed you to breathe, which can be a problem for some people, because you open up a book and it says, oh, breathe in for 4, hold for 12, exhale for 37. And you try to make yourself do that. Maybe that's not the best place to start. Maybe the best place to start is a very simple, natural breath that incorporates the 3 phases of breathing: inhale, exhale, and pause.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the challenge is where the growth happens, right? On that edge of that challenge. I feel like that's what I'm doing in the sea most days. Not going out as far as I can, but spending time in there and just going to that edge, just to the edge, just to tip my toes around the corner of that challenge. And what was I going to say on that? You also mentioned keeping a journal as well, don't you? I wonder how big yours is.
Yeah. I think a lot of teachers, recognize the power of journaling, just writing down uncensored thoughts. When you have an insight, when you have an emotional experience, when you have any event, just some words about it, and then looking over that from time to time and reviewing your journal, catching thoughts, catching insights, I think is really very useful for personal growth. Journaling is a very powerful tool, as is doodling and drawing and painting and music and hugging trees and meditating and movement. So we all, there are many tools, there are many things that we can throw into our breathing practice, bring into our breathing practice, and journaling is one of them. I require it of my practitioners. Journal about your session, what came up, what happened. Journal about your client work. You worked with somebody today. What did they encounter? What did they report? What did you notice? I think journaling is a very powerful practice. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. One thing I do want to ask you is about the kind of stress, and it's a bit of probably a challenging question, but I was thinking, obviously this is a tool at the end of the day. It's kind of more than a tool, really. It's kind of like I feel like your book is like, it's a meditation and breath work, and there kind of needs to be a new word for it, because it's those 2 things combined. It's not just breath work. It is a meditation in itself, and it almost deserves a new word. I don't think breath work gives it the service.
Yeah, when you breathe consciously, you are meditating. It's already happening. Mm-hmm. If you breathe in and you focus on the sensations and you look at the details and you follow the feelings of the breath in your nose, into your sinuses, around the throat, the movement in your chest, if you just observe that, in the process of breathing, that is meditation.
Mm-hmm.
And so before you know it, you're already meditating. And I meet a lot of people going, yeah, I tried meditation. I can't do it. My mind is always so busy, blah, blah, blah. Well, you know what? Focus on breathing in and count to yourself. Breathing in, 2, 3, 4. Breathing out, 2, 3, 4. You're already meditating. You got your foot in the door. The game has already started. So the mind tends to make problems where there are none. We tend to make things very complicated when really they're very simple. So meditative awareness, people who like to go fishing, they just like sitting in a boat, watching the sparkles on the water. Guess what? They're meditating. They wouldn't call it that, but that's what's happening. Listening to music, you sit back and you're just allowing the music to happen and you're there. That's meditation. We don't need to make this stuff complicated. We need to make it conscious.
Do you meet a lot of resistance in your teaching when you go from country to country and you talk about it in this way? Yeah. What do you say to people when they're very much in their head, very much at the back of the class saying, well, what is this guy chatting?
Because resistance is normal. It's based on an ancient survival program. If there's a noise in the bushes, I'm an antelope chomping on the Serengeti plains, and there's a noise in the bushes, hum, hum, hum. I need that. I need that freeze response. And I don't want to just open my heart and go, hey, whatever that noise is in the bushes, come on out, because it might be a tiger. It probably is a tiger, but it might be my mother. It might be my long lost lover. It might be my best friend. So we got to get over this ancient programming that brings up resistance in us immediately to every new or unknown experience. It's natural. It's healthy. It's why we've survived. If I see that mushroom on the ground, I don't know, should I eat it? Probably not, and so we're hardwired to have resistance. So as soon as we step back and observe our system, we go, oh yeah, that's my system's natural resistance. I can then override it. But if I buy into it and I think it's me that's resisting, then I'm missing the whole point, because if I'm neurotic and I make a decision, who just decided, me or my neuroses, right? If I'm afraid and I just chose to do something, who made the choice, me or my fear? So a long time ago, I learned not to say, I am afraid. I would say my system is in a panic, but because that leaves me outside of the situation, right? And I would never say, ooh, I like this, I like that. My mind, or I believe this, I believe that. I would say, my mind likes this. My mind believes that. So now I got that space, which you talked about is so very important. How do we create space? A space for knowing, a space for being, a space for returning to our source, a space for receiving. Breathing creates that space. And you can literally do it right now when you breathe in. Instead of pulling the breath in, try an inhale where instead you just create space in yourself. You physically open and expand, and notice that as you do that, the breath is pouring into you. So I could pull the breath in, and then the breath is going to kind of open and stretch me, or I can open myself and the breath is going to pour in. So we're in a beautiful dance. When we play with the breath, we're in this beautiful dance with life, and it's going to carry over into all of the other areas of life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does enhance every single area of your life. And obviously, as I've been knowing you're coming on the podcast, I'm probably more aware. But it's just been enhancing everything I'm doing, like a practice. And it's that observer mindset as well, because I'm observing my behavior through my breath. So I'm going to the fridge, I'm going to cook some food, and I'm thinking, how's my breathing? Check in right now and just observe whilst you do things, going about your daily chores, your daily doings, and then also be in your breath, be in your awareness. It's so good.
Yeah, and if you are a truly spiritual person, which we all are spiritual beings having a physical experience or a body experience, but say from an analogy of a religious person, maybe the worst kind of religious person, the kind who goes to church every Sunday, they never miss a day, and the rest of the week they're wreaking havoc and they're satanic, So breathing brings our spiritual practice into very practical, moment-to-moment, continuous state. When I return to my breath, I am returning to my spirit, my connection to my spirit. When I return to my breath, I am returning to the spirit of life in me that surrounds me, that fills me, that moves me. Breath is that life, and the spirit of breath is that spirit of life in us. And it's no accident that every great religious spiritual teacher talked about breathing at some point. And that every ancient language, the word for breath, the word for air, the word for spirit, the word for life, it's the same word. Duh.
Yeah, I talk about yoga because I've been practicing yoga for a good 10 years now. And I was thinking back, when was my first breathwork experience, when I was conscious with my breath? And it was during my Bikram class. That's how I got into yoga, was through Bikram. And I did it for 2 years with absolutely reaping the rewards of what I was putting into it. And that breath practice, I didn't know what I was doing. Raise your arms, breathe out with your head, weight in your heels. Like, I'm getting all this instruction, but guiding me through this breath work. My mind's going crazy. And doing Kapalabhati breathing at the end. So the Bikram, 26 postures, and you do breathing exercise before and after, you talk about in the book. And there were so many benefits of the whole practice, but they were certainly like really engaging and benefiting my being. It was phenomenal.
It's beautiful when it comes. It's beautiful when it comes at a very practical, real moment, and you're in the middle of an experience. You bring in the breath, and you see how that transforms your experience.
Yeah,
that's brilliant. And one of my early awakenings into the breath was I was in special operations, deep sea diving, demolition training, and I was at the end of my rope. We were deliberately being pushed to see who's going to drop out today. I mean, every single day in that system, that's what it was about for our instructors. Who can we get to quit today? And they did everything they could do to make you quit, And so it kind of brings up this thing in you that, okay, I'm not going to quit. And I had that going, but then my body just started to fail, and I was getting muscle fatigue, and I'm approaching muscle failure. And then I started experiencing kind of, let's call it, less than optimal self-talk, right? Performance degrading self-talk. And I actually heard myself starting to think, holy crap, I don't think I can make it, thinking this. And right at that moment, one of my buddies came up alongside of me and he said, Doc, let's breathe together. And it just kind of just like suddenly I wasn't alone. That was a real spark for me. The presence, the connection of somebody who has me in mind, my best in mind. And so we were running, and we just started breathing together in rhythm to our footsteps. And it did not take me more than 30 seconds. I was filled with new energy. And I ended up at the head of the pack on that day. I went from thinking I was not going to make it to being the last guy standing. And that for me, that turning me on to the power of human connection, the power of focusing my mind, and the power of letting go of all the crap that I was engaged in that moment and linking to the breath, life-changing. And I became the guy who there's something ecstatic about running into a burning building. There's something ecstatic about diving into pitch darkness, not knowing what the hell's waiting for you. There's something amazing about that for me, because I knew I had something that no matter what I met, no matter what I encountered, that there was a part of me that could rise up and meet that. And I didn't know where that part of me came from. I had never met it. And to this day, I don't know how to simply conjure it up like a circus trick. But when I need it, it comes every single time. Once we connect to that part of us, it's accessible to us always. And so one of the philosophies, one of the guiding ideas in Navy SEALs, Special Operations, Army Ranger, those kind of trainings, is that when you think you are out of energy, you still have 40% juice in your battery. You're not empty at all. Your battery is still 40% full. You just haven't learned how to tap that. And I used to have a Volkswagen Bug, an old 1963 Volkswagen Beetle, and on the floor was a little lever, and it was a reserve tank. When you ran out of gas, you just reached down the floor, you just turned that little thing, you had one more gallon, you could go another 40 miles. And so for me, the breath is that little switch. When you think you can't make it, you got it. It's right there. Just turn to it, flip it on, and you will surprise yourself at what you can do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a beautiful analogy. And you've got many of these riddled throughout the book. It is like your memoirs. It's so many experiences. The Ram Dass experience just brings you to such a human. I mean, you're such an influence, but your humanity in this experience has just been so genuine, and it's phenomenal.
Me and millions of other Westerners were turned on by Richard Alpert, by Ram Dass. Be Here Now, Grist for the Mill. I mean, you go down the list. The man was just, he was one of the biggest shining lights in the Western world, westernizing the Eastern teachings, turning people on to our power, our potential, aspects of ourselves that we only dreamed or haven't even imagined. Oh yeah, Ram Dass is one of my dear eternal teachers. And he gave me a really beautiful teaching that I have spun and weaved and grown. And that is linking a thought, a phrase, an affirmation, a declaration, a power statement, and linking that to the breath. And the one he gave me was, when you inhale, think to yourself or say to yourself, the power of God is within me. So I breathe in and I think that to myself. As I'm breathing in, the power of God is within me. And as I breathe out, I think the grace of God surrounds me. And Ram Dass turned me on to that. And I don't remember what happened. I just started that. I'm breathing in, the power of God is within me. Breathing out, the grace of God surrounds me. Breathing in, the power of God is within me. Breathing out, the grace of God surrounds me. I don't know how long I did it or how many times, but I woke up a couple of hours later driving my car on the expressway, and it wouldn't stop. And from that day, I could not think about God without breathing. I could not breathe without having an experience of God. And anybody who would give somebody that kind of gift, oh my God, I owe you everything forever. Really, Ram Dass, thank you. Thank you for reminding me of him. He's just a remarkable teacher.
Yeah.
And many, many of us owe an eternal debt of gratitude to Ram Dass, who passed this past year. Ram passed. So we're all carrying on his work, and that's how it goes.
Absolutely. There's an amazing album. What was his name? Someone kind of played around with lots of his teachings and released it.
Krishna Das.
Say it again.
Krishna Das.
Krishna Das. No.
Das.
No, I've heard of Krishna Das. No, it was it's an album. I'll put it to a link below, and I'll send it you over. But it's a beautiful album of just amazing. It's mantras and but real, like really good music. I can't think of his name, but
people need to make up their own phrase. I am peaceful. I am calm. I am alive. I am free. I am ready. Here I go. I mean, you make up your own power statements, your own mantras, your own affirmations, and breathe them into every cell of your body. So it's not just a thought, it's who you are and how you are. A very, very powerful principle, combining breathing with thoughts, affirmations, words, and phrases.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think you do us the honor and guide us and myself through a bit of some breath work right now?
Yeah, let's
do it.
Focus on that. So How do you know you are breathing? So right now, you're breathing. How do you know you're breathing? What is it? The movement, a sound, a sensation at the tip of your nose, a lovely feeling of expansion in your chest, a movement in your belly, a sound in your throat, some sparkly, tingly kind of sensations up in your skull, in your sinuses. What is it that tells you you're breathing? Tune into some aspect of the breath, a feeling, a sensation, a movement. And just explore the details of that feeling, a sensation, or movement. Look for some detail in it that you never noticed before. And when the breath comes in, what muscles are you using? When the breath turns around and becomes an exhale, what does that feel like? What happens in that moment when yin becomes yang, when inhale becomes exhale, when positive becomes negative, right? When active becomes passive? That's a magical, mystical point between the inhale and the exhale. And when the exhale is over and there's this few moments of pause, can you open and relax into that pause? Melt into that pause, drop down into that pause after the exhale. So you breathe in, take your time. It's like drinking expensive wine. You don't want to gulp it. You don't want to just guzzle it. You want to enjoy. If you pay 1,000 euros for a bottle of wine, you are going to savor every drop of that wine. Treat your breath that way. When you're breathing in life, you're breathing in joy, you're breathing in love, you're breathing in aliveness, you're breathing in spirit. So take your time and enjoy the experience and open to it. So you breathe in, gradually, slowly, gently, consciously, you're opening and expanding, you're filling yourself more and more. And at some point you reach a feeling of fullness and you just let go with a sigh of relief. And you melt and you relax your jaw and you relax your neck and you relax your shoulders. When you let the exhale go, let some muscle go, a muscle group, let some joint go. So you let go of the air, the breath, and at the same time, let go of some physical place. You know where you carry tension. Most of us, we carry tension in our shoulders and our neck and our jaw. And so you focus on those places while you're breathing in, and you breathe into those places that normally hold or carry tension. You invite them to soften and open and relax. You fill them with breath energy. You infuse those places with light, with breath. And then you release the exhale. You relax and soften all those places. And the breath will carry away any tension that was stored there. So you open and expand. That's the mantra for the inhale. And don't do it quickly. Don't be violent. Take your time. And then when you let go, let that be quick and complete. Don't hold it back. Don't control it. Don't let it out slowly. Snap it loose. Dump it out. Set it free. Let it go. So the exhale has a very different quality than the inhale. The inhale is slow, thoughtful, conscious, deliberate, gradual. The exhale, you snap it loose, set it free, dump it out, let it go. And then cycle through that a few times. Take your time on the inhale, like you're sipping very expensive wine. Track the sensations of the air as it comes in passes through, goes into the chest and the belly. Meditate on those sensations of expansion, side to side, front to back, top to bottom, until you reach a point of comfortable fullness, comfortable expansion, and then you let go. And the exhale pours out of you, and you melt, and you feel peace, you feel gratitude, and you linger in that pause after the exhale in a place of aliveness and peace and stillness. And you wait for the impulse to breathe in, and then you relax into that impulse, and the breath starts to pour into you. And then at some point, you take over and you breathe the in-breath. The first part of the in-breath is a reflex, and it does the inhale for you. At some point, like passing a baton in a relay race, you take over from the body and you take the inhale further than it would go by itself. You take that inhale into your heart's grandest desire. You take that inhale into what's important, and ask yourself that question. What's important? What's really important? And then take a breath and see what answer comes. What's the most important thing for me at this point in my life? And then take one of those breaths. And then sit in the stillness of what bubbles up. Don't look for an answer. Ask the question, engage the breath, feel yourself, let go, fall into that stillness, and wait for the answer. And if no answer comes, wonderful. Ask the question again, what's really important? Take in a breath, let it out, and see what bubbles up. So breathing is an action. Breathing is conscious. Breathing is relaxing. And start to very consciously, very deliberately harvest all those benefits that come naturally with breathing. It feels good to open and stretch when you breathe in. It feels good to let go and relax and melt when you breathe out. And if you can do that in the middle of a stressful moment, you have moved from stress to creativity. You have moved from anxiety to aliveness. And everything is energy. And we can transform using the breath in our heart. We can transform any energy into any other form of energy, right? One of my great friends and teachers, Osho Rajneesh, gave us a meditation. He said, when you breathe in, take in all the pain of the world. What? Take in all the fear of the world. What? Take in all the anger, all the suffering, all the evil. What? And then breathe out love, and breathe out joy, and breathe out peace. Our heart has the ability to transform energy, and it can transform hate into love. It can transform fear into joy. We all have this ability. It's natural. It comes with being human. And just like walking, sometimes we need a little help to learn it. On our own, maybe we would never learn to walk. But somebody holds our hands, they encourage us, we hold on to them, we take our first few steps, and then pretty soon we're on our own. So breathwork is a way for us to awaken to an ability that we all have that is far more important than walking. But we learn in the same way. We have to go through fear. You were afraid to take your first step. You were afraid to walk. Everybody was. And so people are afraid to breathe. Everybody is. You just get over it. You get a good coach. You're determined to do it. And try to stop a kid once they learn how to walk. Try to stop a human once they really learn how to breathe. Good luck with that.
That is genuinely the best way we could leave this. I want to share though what came up for me then. And The first one was just health. Second one was food. And then the third one was space, which was really interesting. So yeah, and linger in aliveness. That just stood out.
And you know, if the same answer keeps coming, then what I ask myself is, why is that important?
Yeah.
What's important about that? And then dig deeper. Because really, you know what? The secret of this practice is the answer is not important. It's the question that's important. And if any given moment, imagine you're in an argument with somebody, blah, 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 meh, 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 and one person takes a breath and goes, wait a minute, what's really important? A year from now, is what I think is so freaking important really going to be that important? Can I use my breath to wake up in the middle of a moment and bring in a new light, bring in something from beyond, something from within? So breathing is a great tool for intervention. It's a great tool for reconnecting to our purpose and our mission. And it's a way to keep asking that question. What else is possible? What's next for me? Where do I go from here? Right?
One mantra that stuck out to me when I was a kid, I must have been 10 years old. I was watching the Terminator 2. And then what happens is this woman pours, the little kid actually, they're in a diner and he pours ice cream in the woman's pocket. Do you remember it? And then she turns to Sarah Connor and goes, think of it this way, in 100 years, who's going to care? And that stood out for me. In 100 years, okay, good number. I would approach that with lots of things. I'd be like, in 100 years, is this going to matter? No. Okay, crack on. Well, that was
We've all had those moments, right?
Yeah.
We've had enough of those where you can look back right now on some moment when it seems so freaking important that the other person understand what you were saying and that they agree. And now you look back and go, really? Really? Yeah. So the sooner we remember that, I think the easier life flows, the quicker life flows, and the more beautiful it becomes for everybody. Learning how to let go is a real skill. And sometimes letting go of our point of view, letting go of our position, letting go of what we think is so important and so necessary. And maybe many of the problems that we're struggling with and trying to figure out how to solve, maybe the answer is just learning to let go, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Dan, thank you for your wisdom, for your time, for your guidance, for your pointings. And I will be preaching your book to people for the rest of my days, I believe. Because
thank you so much.
It's touched me, and I think it's such a blueprint as well for just life. Anyone who wants to live a life that's, you know, purposeful, connected, and conscious, then yeah, this is a book that is on the shelf.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Dan. Really appreciate it.